Alright, finally got around to finishing the game and making a goddamn video. I know, I'm a smidge late, but you know, what are you gonna do? Okay, so janky animations and crispy NPCs aside, the game is pretty good. The main question is it better than the first game? And unfortunately, the answer isn't very clear-cut. And I want to make it clear. I enjoyed the game. I spent around 60 hours in total tinkering with it, doing side stuff and finishing the main storyline. There's lots I haven't done, but I've done just enough to give a, half-assed YouTuber opinion about it. So let's get down to brass tacks. The game looks great. Since the launch, they worked on optimizations because the game ran like ass when it came out. I could literally barely get 50 FPS on low out of it. Now it's in the 60 to 70 range on a 1070 card. The climbing in this game is just fantastic. Imagine taking a shit, it flies out of you like a railgun. You look at the toilet, there's nothing there. You wipe your ass, the paper's clean. And you just sit there in disbelief. That is how smooth the climbing is in this game. It's so easy and intuitive that if you do end up falling to your death, it means you probably messed up. I'm not saying there's no weird situations with it, but, every time it happened, I was kinda trying to break the game. The gameplay loop is more or less the same. Whack some zombies, deal with bandits, pick a few locks, explore GRE facilities, shop around, rinse and repeat. The main difference in the combat is there are no guns in this game. And let me tell you folks, it made zero difference as soon as you get a decent bow or a crossbow. In the first game, guns were OP as fuck. As soon as you got a gun, a horde of zombies turned into a how many 6-year-olds can you beat up kind of scenario. I tested this theory in a local kindergarten and turns out kids are far tougher than you'd expect. Once they get a hold of your legs, you're kind of fucked. But anyway, the main OP-ness comes from the crossbow you get from the PKs after you capture a couple of territories for them, which can be done fairly early in the game. This thing turns you into a post-apocalyptic John Wick. Just look at how easily I can cheese through so many enemies like they're nothing. Why does this thing do 700 damage? The bow isn't too far off, but it's a lot more balanced. Next thing I want to talk about is the map design, and man, I honestly feel this is where they dropped the ball the most. The first game felt so much more diverse in terms of the terrain and the environment you could climb around. You had the slums, a junkyard, a power plant, the beach, the docks, apartment buildings. Old Town was a lot different from Haran. You really felt like you were traversing a real town with different scenery. The map in this game is just flat, despite all the tall buildings. It's brown on the bottom, green on the top. It's like me after a night of heavy drinking. All the buildings are more or less the same height apart from the few big ones, which don't even serve that much of a purpose apart from some story elements. There wasn't ever any wow moment when you get to a new place in this game. Now, meanwhile, visiting the bridge in the first game, it felt so cool. You could admire how it was designed, how the cars were littering the streets, how it was destroyed, just the sheer size of it. You could always see it in the distance, and the environment itself told a story too. None of those things exist in this game, and the handful of those moments in this game felt like farts in the wind. Another thing to take into account in this game is the chase system and nighttime. In the first game, even with guns. You didn't want to wander around at night with your dick in your hand. Volatiles had a really good way of searching their surroundings, and once they found you, you were better off getting caught with extra food in North Korea. I mean, you were fucked. Here, well, volatiles are still very dangerous and can basically one-shot you until you get a decent amount of health. So, what's the problem? Well, you're gonna see the volatiles about as often as the average fat guy sees his dick. One, you'll rarely get chased. Howlers don't spawn on rooftops, so as long as you're up high, you've got nothing to worry about. Two, if you do start a chase, it takes so long for it to reach level 3 where volatiles start spawning. You'll find 5 shelters in the meantime. I've never had a level 3 chase happen unless I wanted to, so I can make those farming videos. One more thing that felt more like a nuisance than a game mechanic is that Aiden can't spend too much time in the dark, otherwise he'll turn into a zombie. They really should have made this mechanic more impactful throughout the game. I've literally had so many inhalers, I could probably start my own pharmaceutical company. Now that doesn't mean there isn't stuff to do. I feel like there's a lot more actual stuff to do in this game than in the first one, like looting convoys, you know, scavenging stuff from buildings or department stores, which are all so-called nighttime activities. Also, you can rescue civilians, killing special infected, capturing territories, GRE anomalies, and random events when you have to kill zombie bodybuilders. Although I do miss the airdrops from the first game, although it's a simple mechanic, it kind of gave the game a bit of depth. And in this game, it's just some random encounters where bandits, you know, just sit around the chest, which just isn't the same. It's low effort. The GRE hospitals are nice, they have a great atmosphere, but they're a bit too repetitive. They're kind of like Draugr crypts in Skyrim. They all follow the same exact path of top to bottom clearing of floors and finding inhibitors in the same place. Another lackluster thing is the combat skill system. I swear, I don't think I've used 80% of these. Some passive ones are nice, but overall they're just unnecessary. There's no reason to go into a horde and try to smack them around with a machete when you can just throw one Molotov and be done with it. Although, to be fair, I've killed myself with these Molotovs more times than I've flashed myself in Counter-Strike. But the climbing agility skills are fantastic. They integrate so well into the entire system of parkour. And each skill there really does count. Although I wish they kept the third quote-unquote survival skill tree from the first game, so you can kind of level up indefinitely. They kind of circumvented this by letting you upgrade your lockpicks and weapons instead of, you know, your handling of them. So when you improve a lockpick, you get more durability and easier opening of locks instead of boosting a specific lockpicking skill. It's an interesting way to deal with it. The crafting, though, is where most of your hours are gonna go into if you're dead set on completing this game at 100%. Endgame equipment costs a fuck ton of rare and unique zombie tokens. You're gonna develop arthritis by the time you're done farming zombies and volatiles. Although I do have a couple of guides on that, you know, how to make it easier if you're not above, you know, cheesing a little bit, hint hint. Stealth sort of exists in this game. I mean, there are even skills that support it, but there's no real reward for it, so I didn't bother. The whole hiding in the bushes thing, I don't think I've used it once in the game. And this is me we're talking about. I played a stealthy archer in goddamn Red Dead Redemption. The music is also another thing that bugged me slightly. The original composer was Pavel Bresz. I mean, I don't fucking know what the fuck are Polish people doing with their names. But anyway, Mr. Mr. Pavel did a wonderful job in the first game. The music conveyed an unimaginable feeling, like a combination of despair and adventure, helplessness and badassery at the same time. It really conveyed a strange but wonderful feeling. The new composer tried to recreate that feeling, but it's just not quite there. It's not horrible, don't get me wrong, the tune is very nice. But if you compare it to the first game, it just sort of falls flat. The story of the game is pretty decent. I really liked it. I mean, I won't spoil anything for you guys, but if you liked the first one, I think you'll enjoy this one as well, because it follows a similar structure. It also has more than one ending, and different choices you can make throughout the game, plus capturing territories for the opposite faction, so there's some replayability to be had there. Now, the 500-hour completion claim, I gotta say that seems a bit like bullshit. I mean, of course I haven't tested it, but in 60 hours I have more than half of the achievements. Now I know that achievements aren't the only thing when you're going for a completionist run. You know, it takes all the crafting, all the tokens, all the collectibles, but it still feels a bit too much. Like 500 hours is a lot. I'd be surprised if it took more than 200 hours to 100% the entire game if you're using a guide. All in all, the devs tried an if it ain't broke, don't fix it kind of approach to the game, and I'd say they did a great job. The game more or less feels like the first one, with some things improved, and unfortunately, some things were just a bit lacking. There's also a New Game Plus feature. When combined with the replayability factor, I think it makes, you know, it makes a pretty sweet deal. All in all, I enjoyed the game a lot. If you're not convinced, wait for the game to, you know, go on sale or wait for the DLCs. If you made it this far, I hope you enjoyed the video, so thank you for watching. That's all I've got. See ya!
There's a PK on patrol who went to the bushes too alone. Their luck to find a rope so sickly, jumped on his pecker quickly.
Hey, we all got our ways to survive. If mine is to have chumps throw their money at me, and their way is to throw all their money at me, well, win-win, I say.
You die tomorrow.